We are Dead Centre. We are a independent theatre company based between Dublin and London, trying to make unusual work for the theatre.
We're excited by trying to make theatre do things that it shouldn't really do, and to try and use the strategies and techniques and the equipment and the skills of theatre makers to do things that it's not designed for, I suppose.
The idea to develop To Be a Machine came from knowing the Irish author Mark O'Connell. We knew him socially and personally, so we thought it'd be interesting to have an opportunity to work with him on adapting the script for stage. His book, the original English title, To Be a Machine, is a very funny, very interesting overview of the state of the art of transhumanism and the technology associated with that movement.
The book is an investigation of this phenomenon called transhumanism, but because of Mark's voice and Mark's interest and his skill as a writer, it also becomes a meditation on the current moment for humans and where humans find ourselves in relation to technology and what humans currently think about the human condition and the strange place that the human condition currently has in our world.
What we're trying to bring on stage is we're always trying to answer the question, what is theatre? And you're always trying to expand that rather than answer it. So in fact, the question is an infinite question. So in this case, where we're trying to make what might be called a sort of live short film, you want to bring together some of the aspects of filmmaking and some of the aspects of theatre and see where they meet and if there's a hybrid new form that might emerge. That's one of the opportunities of this digital pivot that's happened as a result of the COVID lockdown.
And I think, if the show is kind of asking what is theatre, that comes in a way from Mark's book, because Mark's book is asking what is a person, in a way. Because we're not trying to make what is theatre just for theatre lovers, a meta-theatrical investigation of theatre, but we're using that, as Mark uses that, to explore what do we mean when we talk about human beings? What is a person now?
And also, I suppose, this title, The Machine in Mir, evokes Hamlet when he mentions in his letter to Ophelia that, he signs off his letter saying, this machine is mine, Hamlet in the English. I think it translates near to The Machine in Mir. And it evokes for Hamlet that he was in a political system and he felt trapped, and that while he's fighting to see if he had a soul, he was in this seemingly mechanistic universe whether he had choices or whether he could act, or did he have room to act and make a decision which had political effect. And I suppose that's some of the same anxieties that float around the transhumanist questions. If we have agency and if there are things we can do that affect the world and our reality around us, or are we in fact robots all along? The question of whether transhumanism is going to work, I suppose only time will tell. There's a lot of scientific skepticism at the moment over some experiments with, for example, freezing a body and whether it can be reanimated in 100 years' time. Essentially, this is, on a cellular level, this is currently possible. We can freeze an egg, we can freeze cells and reanimate them after a certain dormant period. So the transhumanists are saying, let's just multiply that to the scale of a whole human body and the same principle will hold. Yes, in theory. In practice, this seems to be a little bit of a fantasy. And for a lot of the transhumanists, they're just hedging their bets. A bit like Pascal's wager, when you believe in God, only because you might as well. If he doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. If he does, you did some good gambling.
But then the question comes, I suppose, with something like that is it true? Will cryonics work? And then one of the things that Mark asks is, would we want it to work? Do we definitely all want to live forever? Or, maybe different people have different opinions about that. Some people will say yes, definitely, and some people will say, when you really think about it,
Yeah, well, because out of that, the sort of hidden behind all the impulse of transhumanism is a fear of death and a desire to escape mortality. And Mark's book increasingly becomes an investigation into the question, not what is the meaning of life. It sort of doesn't need answering. We know life is full of meaning, but what is the meaning of death? And Mark kind of tries to make a case that death is actually important to us, important to who we are. And if we lost death, we would lose humanity. The particular way of making this version 1.0 of The Machine in Mir is definitely a pandemic production. The staging is very COVID safe. We were planning on making the show, but not in this exact configuration. But when the pandemic occurred, we saw that it was an opportunity to engage with the questions of transhumanism, where bodies are understood as being problems. And if we can get rid of our bodies, then we can move on to become better versions of ourselves. So suddenly the pandemic can be viewed in the same way, where our bodies are biohazards, and we have to remove our bodies in order to be able to carry on, our existence. And so actually the dynamic that happens in this iteration between the performer Michael Maertens and our distant audience, remote audience, is a sort of new an attempt to make a connection, a COVID connection. Sort of how can you reach people when you're not in the same room?
What theatre is about being next to other bodies in a room, just as much as it's about what you watch on stage. I mean, a show can feel very different depending on who's in the audience and depending on whether it's a full house and all these things. And as soon as that was taken away, it was interesting and exciting to watch recorded theatre work from home on your laptop. But we felt there was a problem. There was something to be said or to be discussed about what an audience is.
All our grandparents know how to use Zoom now. So really this pandemic, it exposed the fact that when people pretend they don't understand technology, it's so pervasive, technology, in all our lives, that even if we don't admit it, we kind of are living in an age where we have a fairly easy relationship with technology. In that spirit, this show is about everybody and for everybody living in this technological age.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the transhumanists, a lot of the transhumanists who Mark spoke to are millionaires, they're tech entrepreneurs, they're, these people in Silicon Valley, but the work that is done in those industries affects all of us. So our grandparents are, and we're all living in the world in a lot of ways that was been made by these strange, crazy tech billionaires who have these weird ideas about what it means to be a human.
What isn't for everybody is the outcome of technological innovation. There will be winners and losers of a digital future, and what's hidden behind all technological kind of ideas, transhumanism is the same, are the hidden inequalities, and who gets forgotten and who gets exploited in a machine age.